here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned. Immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week, it's going to be the turn of Chris Musto, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry, and all that other groovy stuff. A drummer, designer, production, and stage manager who's worked with an enormous amount of people, which I could give you a few of the names already, but I'll let you find out in this fascinating interview. And he's still got projects on to this very day, as you're going to find out in this fascinating interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Chris, it's over to you.
I think probably when I was when I was at school, because I was born in 1955, right? So 70 now, God's sake. When I was my first real sort of awareness of music, firstly, was when a bloke at school was going around. One of the prefects, actually, he was going around singing Twist and Shout. And I was like, what the hell is that? What is this thing? Because my parents were, miles away from that sort of thing. There was such a shift in generations then, And my father was into something completely different. He educated me, I educated him.
Right.
To what was happening now. And, and I think there always should be that generational shift. It's really important. But the first thing that, other than that, I went to a fete at a hospital in South London, because I come from Sutton, and around that area, Carshalton Beaches, there was a children's hospital, and they had a fete, and I'd won a tombola or something like that, and I picked up a load of singles, and they were all Fontana label singles. And that included things like the Spencer Davis Group and Dave D, Dozy Beaky, Mick and Titch and things like that. Spencer Davis especially, of course, Keep On Running and Give Me Some Lovin' and all that, And that really turned my head. And it sort of, I just potted around sort of listening to just singles like Creedence Clearwater and stuff like that.
Yes, my God.
And then the first record that I bought was off a guy at school, and it was he bought this record and he didn't like it. He liked the cover, and that cover was the second Band album, the Band.
Right, yes, the Big Pink.
Yes, that's it. And that being the first album, this one, the second one, was the one that was fantastic. Sort of sepia brown cover with a kind of grubby black and white image of them on the front. And I was sold by the image. It was fantastic. Just like you look at it now and it could be the Kings of Leon or something like that,
Yes.
And that album was the first album I bought. That was when I was 14. That was 1969. And then a year later, I ended up going to see Creedence Clearwater at the Albert Hall. And that shaped me, really, I suppose, just seeing. I'd heard this band, I'd heard Proud Mary and, Bad Moon and, all that stuff. And then suddenly seeing them live, so, oh, God, this is...
Yes, well, being 15, going to your first gig would have been quite something, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. That really shaped me, I think. And then I'd been to see Joe Brown and the Brothers in Aladdin with my mum.
Right.
And, he was, I had a talking picture of you and all that kind of stuff at the time. And that, that was prior to that. But, must say, it was really turned me when I saw Creedence, 1970. So, yeah.
Well, yes. And I mean, at that age, you would have been probably more than slightly aware, especially being in London, of that sort of the counterculture that was kind of going on and going through the capital. Especially, I mean, it probably didn't happen too much in the wilderness of East Anglia, but the sort of the hippie movement and things like, I don't know, you had the Beatles and Stones, but you'd have been hearing people like Hendrix and Jefferson Airplane and the Doors. Did they come onto your radar at all at that?
Yeah, they did, because we had, it's like we had a youth club and a group of friends, in the youth club, there were all different factions. You know, there were some skinheads who used to come along. There were the glam rockers. There were the soul boys. There were the proggy kind of lot. And there were the other lot who was like myself, really, who sort of bounced between a few. And I was into bands at the time like Free,
Right.
Mott the Hoople, early Mott the Hoople stuff. They hadn't gone into the glam area yet, you know. And Hendrix, of course, I'd never quite got to see, but there you go. It's a year out, probably. A year later, I'd have probably got to see him.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I remember we had a local technical college in Ewell, it's near Epsom, and they put on shows there. You know, I went, you know, I saw so many groups there. They were fantastic, you know. Black Sabbath, for example, in 1970.
Blimey, that was very early days.
Very early days, you know, it was Paranoid time, really. They'd released their first album.
Oh, wow.
And I saw them there a couple of times, and there were things like Kevin Ayers and the Whole World and you know, the Canterbury bands who used to come, and Soft Machine.
Soft Machine. Like yes, my God, you've probably seen Robert Wyatt, wouldn't you, as well?
Yeah. He was one of my kind of heroes, really, because he was a great drummer, and he had such an interesting voice.
Yes, absolutely. I loved his stuff.
Yeah, and he was actually turned out to be a really interesting songwriter.
Yes.
But, you know, that time, and you know, it was just having a group of people around who were into lots of people in different things. The Soul Boys, you know, they'd be listening to, you know, Booker T and Otis and Wilson Pickett and all that sort of stuff. And they'd educate us and bring their singles in. We had a dance set or something in our hut in the churchyard. You know, we had this churchyard rooms youth club. And people would come along, and then other people like us, like someone would come in with an Edgar Broughton band single or something like that, and they'd play out "Demons Out" or something, and then they go, "Oh yeah, they're playing shortly in Hyde Park at one of the free festivals." So we'd all bowl off to a Hyde Park Free Festival, and I watched Pink Floyd do "Atom Heart Mother," and you know, it was, but it was all this kind of generation. You know, the skinhead boys would be into reggae, you know, and they'd be into Trojan reggae, and you know,
yes,
they'd teach us a lot about, you know, and it was great. It was this cross pollination, really, you know. And
that's
then
interesting.
Then the girls had come. They were into. I went to see Tyrannosaurus Rex, and they were supporting King Crimson.
Crikey, you did see everybody, probably for 75 pence.
I've still got a lot of the tickets.
God, don't
I
throw them
kept
away.
tickets.
Crikey, that's,
you know,
what a double bill. Jeez, I mean, if only we had we could have taken a couple of pictures at the same time.
I know, you know, we didn't have phones, did we? You know,
didn't have even cameras. We used to have cameras were not great, and you only had a film for 24, 36 exposures, which had to last for 12 months, didn't they?
Too much to blooming develop, and you know, it's you know, so it was a really fertile period, you know, and it set us all up. I think me and my mates at the time, and I'm, you know, a lot of my mates, I suppose, we ended up, as a group of us, we ended up running a record shop in when I got to 21. There was a chain called Harlequin, and Harlequin, I think, sold out to our price eventually, and we ran 2 record shops in Piccadilly.
Blimey. That's amazing.
We all got quite serious about that time, you know, and
yes. Well, 76 is quite a sort of a kind of pivotal moment, like you were saying, another kind of generation that comes along. So did you, when you got to sort of 71, you'd have been 16, I've done the maths. Did you leave school at that stage with any O-levels, or did you stay on?
I left after my O's, yeah. I'd had enough by then. My dad got me a job in an art studio. So, you know, I've had these 2 concurrent careers of drumming and all that side of an art.
Yes. And was art something that you were particularly good at school?
No, I ended up doing technical drawing at school.
Right.
The art teacher was really great, actually. And he was really he got it, you know. He wasn't like, I went to a grammar school, and, you know, a lot of the teachers were getting on a bit. You know, my maths teacher taught my dad, so he always used to say, "Oh, you're nothing like your dad," because my dad was
Yes.
really clever, you know, and he was a proper mathematician, technical.
Right. I
You know,
got you. Yes,
yeah,
he did.
and that wasn't entirely encouraging, was it? You know,
No,
so
not at all. There was a.
no,
But I
so.
bet he had leather elbow patches though, didn't he? And
Oh, well, they all did. I think all of them did. You know, they probably weren't earning any money, so they had to repair and make do amend, wasn't it?
yes. Well, I
Yeah,
seem to be remember quite a lot of teachers have been in the Royal Navy or
yeah,
in the
yeah,
forces and sort
yeah. Well,
of
they come out of the war. Our English teacher was a commando.
right.
He was a hard. What's it? I
I
mean, he
know.
was. He was. You know, you didn't mess with him. He was all right, actually. He was all right because he was really tough, you know. Um, our maths teacher was the head of the combined cadet forces, and he was a bit of a wrong un, I dare to say. He's probably not with us anymore, so I can.
Yes, safe
Um,
say that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, he was a maniac, actually, to be honest. Um, and, yeah, so a lot of our teachers were all ex-army or ex-navy or ex-air force, actually, more army and navy, you know.
Yeah, I
I think.
remember the Navy. I mean, it's quite interesting. I don't think any of them would have survived that long because if you remember the staff room, it was just a cloud of smoke, wasn't it? And it's quite a small area, the staff rooms used to be. I mean, you'd avoid them if you could, but you could see that there would be most people in a confined space smoking. So most of them would have
Oh,
had lung cancer by the age of
oh, I
50.
would imagine so. I mean, yeah, as you say, you could probably cut the air with a knife if you walked into those rooms, couldn't you? You know, I do
Yes.
recall it. A load of sort of ill-matching furniture, whatever they could find. You know, old chairs, they are, and this space. Yeah, you wouldn't. Every now and again, you'd have to go into the staff room and to sort of find some teacher or something. But we had a funny school because it was grammar school, and I was doing my Duke of Edinburgh awards at that time, and I was head of the school shooting team. And I used to hang out in lunchtimes in the armory. We had two armories at school. We had one with the weapons and one with the actual ammunition.
Right.
And I'd be
God.
cleaning guns in me break time because I just kind of liked it. You
What
know,
else?
it was
Yes.
relaxing basically, and I was quite good on the rifle range, so I kind of took pride in that really, and that was strange. You know, you can't really contemplate that these days, can you? You
No, I
know,
must admit that
oh,
is
there's the bullet store. You know, oh yeah, what have you got in there? All you know, thunder flashes and all sorts of blooming, you know. All,
yes.
um, so yeah. Anyway, going back, I left school after my O levels.
Yes.
Got me a job in an art studio just off Baker Street,
Right.
and
And who did
uh,
you sort of work for? Was it a particular agency or company?
we had a small studio. I don't say small. There was probably a few. I don't know, about half a dozen artists there, and a studio manager, and then the boss and a secretary. And a couple of the guys there were just astonishing illustrators. One of the guy worked on Kubrick's 2001,
Right.
and he'd done all the color. He worked on the color sequence, you know, and he I don't know, you know, he goes off in his pod and goes off into space and travels through all this time, and he made that sequence up.
Blimey.
So he had a lot to talk about. He was interesting.
Yes. And were you kind of particularly intrigued with art covers, album covers at that
That
stage? I
happened
mean,
a bit later because um, I at that stage we were working for the ad agencies. So if you actually get to see anything like the TV series Mad Men,
yes.
yeah, a lot of our clients were McCann Erickson, who were one of the clients who weren't a fictitious client in Mad Men. You know, they were real, and so we'd be working for these big glossy agencies, and I'd be going around delivering artwork to them and back, and then learning how to draw stuff.
Right.
You know, actually, you know, with a pen and ink and things. You know, because you were looking at 1973. You know, so um, I yeah, that was a real foundation. Actually, that taught me a heck of a lot. And then I ended up, I worked for a couple of small companies, and then I moved. My dad moved to Reading. I worked in a fantastic design studio in Reading. Probably the best regular job I ever had. Good. It's only three of us there, you know.
Yes.
I learned how to silk screen and all that kind of thing. Then came back into London. I didn't want to live in Reading particularly. As, you know, I was coming to London every weekend and going, you know, say doing things like going to Hyde Park Free festivals and things. And we, I ended up. Then I got an offer. A mate of mine who was running one of the record shops in town I was talking about, and so I got a job there a couple of years. That was 75 and 76, and that was when. At that time, you know, Patti Smith's first album came out, the Damned album, Jonathan Richman, Modern Lovers. Things like the New York Dolls albums and things like that were unobtainable, MC5. You couldn't get them.
Yes.
They'd gone, they'd been deleted, you know, and the only time we could get them is when the import guy came round and had deletions in the back of his van. And he used to he had a label called Transatlantic, who used to issue, you know, fantastic folk albums like Pentangle and, you know,
That's
Remble
right.
Anch and all those people.
Yes.
Yeah. So
God.
I love the record shop. Was great because it was mad. It was Piccadilly. It
So
was
was it one of those record shops that, like we had in Norwich, like, you know, Robbins Records or Bax Records, where, you know, people could go in and listen to a record in a little booth, and there was a lot of people smoking, listening, and also this was a time of topographic oceans and,
oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, all that,
those
wasn't it?
the Roger Dean album covers and stuff
Yeah,
like that, and
yeah,
people with long hair into prog. So did it have
yeah,
that slight vibe
yeah.
of people being very hip and self-consciously cool?
Yes, it did. It was quite interesting, really, because we didn't have listening booths. If someone wanted to listen to something, we had a couple of decks and you play it over the shop. And
Right.
um, we used to get, around that time, it was the first time I ended up playing with Matlock, you know, from the Pistols, you know, and Glen came in 1975, and that was the first time we ever met. And well, we used to get people coming in like Quincy Jones. He was a regular. He came
Blimey.
in, and then he would say to us like, "So have you got any new soul records?" You know, and I used to say to him, "Surely you know what new soul records there are." You know, I mean, really, don't you know who you are? You know, and
Quincy, yes.
yeah, and things like Rod Temperton, who was in Heatwave at the time,
Oh,
and you know, it was
yes.
a Boogie Nights time, and you know, of course, he ended up co-writing a lot of the stuff on Thriller with Michael Jackson. You know, so
That's right.
he was a big
Yes.
deal.
God. With the
So
members of Toto as well, bizarrely.
this what?
With Thriller, there was quite a few members of Toto that appeared on that
Photo.
album.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And they wrote a couple of tracks as well, which was quite
The
interesting.
Porcaros and Jeff Porcaro's a
Yes.
drummer.
Bit of yacht rock.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whatever that kind of might be. There's that band called the Yachts, wasn't there? I guess that much.
Oh, yes, they're from Liverpool, who went on to be
That's right.
Immaterial. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was, yeah. So had you
Yeah, yeah.
started drumming at this stage? Had you
Oh
started?
yeah, I've been playing drums since I was 14. So my cousin was a drum. Well, he had a drum kit. He wasn't a drummer really. He had a drum kit, and I was interested. You know, my parents were saying, "Oh, you know, going to learn a proper instrument," and I was, you know, it was like piano or guitar or something, and I was just rubbish. So I just didn't have what was kind of needed really, I suppose, and the drums appealed to me. So
Yes. Were
I,
you kind of what? Who was Bill Ward one of your people, or who did you particularly like drumming?
well, yeah, it's you know, of the groups that I saw around that time, my hero was Simon Kirke out of Free.
Right.
He was exact because he was. I don't know. I was listening to Booker T and that, and listened to Al Jackson, and I loved that kind of playing. And Clyde Stubblefield and James Brown. Um, they were my reasons because I was never. I like Bill Bruford. who's with Yes at the
Yes.
time. I loved him, and they were always a bit unattainable for me because I always felt, Bonham was more attainable, right?
Yes.
Charlie Watts more. I get it, that was that side thing. I could really understand it. But the kind of other stuff that I remember going to see the Mahavishnu Orchestra in 1971, I think it was, in Crystal Palace. And I always thought it was studio jiggery pokery when I heard the Inner Mountain Flame album. And then I saw them live. And I went, oh my God, they're doing this. They're actually playing this. And I really felt like giving up. It was just, oh, I'll never be that good. Never.
Yes.
And in fact, I remember talking to Billy Cobham years later, and I just said, when I first saw you at Crystal Palace, you scared the crap out of me. And he didn't get it. He didn't know what I was talking about. I said, no, you were so good. I just want to pack it in. And he said, oh, are you glad you didn't? And I went, yeah, I'm glad now. But
Yeah, well, quite. And I think, was it Alan White who also was the Yes drummer as well? But he also worked with Terry Reid as well. I remember there was a brilliant bit of the very early Glastonbury Festival in the early 70s with Terry Reid, Linda Lewis, and Alan White on drums, which was just fantastic.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realise. I kind of... I ended up doing a gig with Terry Reid at Dingwalls in about 1978, actually. He came up with a group and he said, do you know Route 66? And I went, yeah, I might do. We did
it's familiar.
Probably nearly half-hour version of it, actually. And Terry was quite, I'd say he was loose, shall I put it like that.
I think he'd been to California, hadn't he, and sort of during that time, so he was probably a little bit spaced out.
Yeah, and he was, again, working in the record shop, we discovered an album he did called River.
Oh, God, I was going to say River was just, it had a track, the first track's called Dean, which is just...
Dean is just phenomenal. It was one of those records that got lost, it never even started, probably. It was so great. Now I think there's a big gap and Seed of Memory came out. And they're just fantastic records. They're just, especially River, because I found that was really formative. There were certain things like, I think, Tim Buckley, Greetings from LA, and the River, and there was an album by Shuggy Otis called Inspiration Information. Again, you talk about people doing solo records, and that was totally solo. And people going on about Mike Oldfield at the time and saying, no, go and listen to Shuggy Otis. That's a fantastic piece of work.
Yes, this is the kind of, that slightly stoned singer-songwriter.
Yeah, slightly.
It's but I love that period of Terry's work, that sort of, I suppose, early to mid 70s, before he got a bit too, I think probably just got a bit too stoned, really. And then but still amazing.
Eventually gets through that and comes out the other side, and just gets older, but those periods were so important to me in formulating what I was really going to be doing myself.
Yes. So when you were in the record shop, then was that your full time, and your drumming was kind of something that you just did?
I took a bit of a break when I was in the record shop. I was doing bits and bobs, Then I left the shop, and I met this girl and moved to Germany, and I went to Berlin.
Oh, right. So Berlin must have been very different at that stage.
Yeah, I was 77 in Berlin, and we had a flat on the outskirts near Tempelhof airfield. And we...
So were you there at the same time that David Bowie had...
Yeah, it would have been that sort of time.
Relocated. So, yes. What was it like? Because I went in the kind of mid to late 80s a couple of times, and the wall was still up, and it still had that kind of...
When did that come down? 89?
I think it was 89. That
Yeah.
was that period. But there was definitely, because you had to do national service in Germany unless you went to Berlin. So obviously all the lefty radicals went to Berlin, didn't they? Because
Yeah.
you didn't have to do national service. So it did have a
No, it
very,
was its own little island,
it
wasn't it?
was a little island with sort of the Russians all sitting around it, breaking
Yeah.
I remember the sound, they would fly over and break the sound barrier. So it just had these explosions, which would scare the hell out of me, actually.
Sonic booms.
Yeah, it was.
I remember that at school actually in Sutton. I remember they announced that there was going to be a sonic boom one day. I can't remember when it was, but wasn't playing the Lightning. Yeah, it was the Lightning doing a sonic boom, and it's always been one of my hero aeroplanes. So just because of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
There you go. So
yeah.
how long?
Berlin was interesting. Yeah, it was good. I was there for 10 months, I think.
My
I
God,
was there for.
you experienced the winter in Berlin, which must have been quite harsh.
Oh, November. I came. That's when I came back. It was like I was walking along one day. It was a leather jacket on. I was freezing, and I'd been playing in this. I don't know if you can say it now, but it was a drag show.
Oh, right.
Um,
Yes.
Playing drums in this drag show. It was three. The band we were wearing just glittery suits, and there's three drag artists.
So was it a
And
bit like we expect, from that period of cabaret-ish, sort of?
it wasn't quite as classy as that, I'd say. It was a bit low rent.
It was low rent. Was it low rent sort of
Yeah,
porn?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a bit scummy, but it wasn't. It wasn't that bad, It was a little thing. I did that for a few. I don't know, I can't remember, 3 months or something like that, and then came back. Uh,
Yes.
I got
Well,
back.
it must have been an amazing experience
It
because,
was. It was lots of fun, and I got back here. This is a real potted history. It's probably chucking around a few things, but I got back. Went for a job in an art studio, and that was when I started doing record covers.
right.
Right. 1978, I started working with this company called Cream, and Cream, you look in a lot of the work that we were doing. I ended up being a junior art director there, and it's funny because I just fell into that one. Little bit of history I'd had in working in design studios as well. They sort of ignored the fact that I'd been out of the picture for probably 3 years. And then I just liked them. They liked me, I think, and we just got on. And I ended up doing, you know, work for Queen and the Stones and Roxy and Brian Eno and, I can't remember, Wings. It was all that stuff, it was really, they were hugely successful.
Yes. So were you then in charge of coming out with the idea or coming out with executing someone
It
else's
was it
idea?
was kind of executing ideas. I think we had. I was drafted in on these kind of big meetings, where you had someone come in with an idea. Okay, Mercury would come in with an idea. I did an album called Jazz, right?
Yes.
And the album after that was News of the World, which we had one of our illustrators do, work on. And Jazz was one of those jobs. I went back to being able to do what I started doing, drawing things with pen and ink. And I used a compass and spun all these circles, concentric circles, which you look at now, you could probably do in an hour in an Adobe program. But I had to do it with a pen and ink compass, and I think I did about 6 goes at it because it kept blobbing on me and things like that. And if you recall the cover. I don't know if you're familiar with the Queen
I'm
cover.
I'm I'm familiar with News of the World more than
Yeah,
Jazz.
that's the robot with them in their hands, isn't it? But
Yes. A
Jazz
gatefold
was
sleeve.
Jazz was the album where it was like what the outer tracks on it, Fat Bottom Girls and Bicycle Race and things like that.
Yes. I remember
Um,
that period.
so that was
Yeah.
it's a nice graphic cover. I'm quite proud of it. Um,
Yes.
but then we worked on some girls' stuff for the Stones. I did the cover for Miss You, uh,
Blimey.
stuff like that, and then I don't know, worked on Manifesto for Roxy and stuff like that. the meantime, I'd met Hazel O'Connor, and we were mates, and I was kind of getting back into the feeling the way with music again.
So
Yeah.
had she done Breaking Glass at that stage?
No, it was before that. Yeah, it was before all that stuff. She was this. I knew she could have been. I knew she was going to be a star. You just had to hang around with her for a bit. You just knew that she had something, and she had full of energy and vibe and style, all that sort of thing. And we just became mates, and I kind of, I don't know. I went one way and she went another way, and we lost touch.
Oh, what a shame! Because
Yeah.
yes, I mean, I saw a lovely show of hers at the Norwich Arts Centre when a few decades ago, probably, where she was kind of doing a performance which was kind of telling her life story through her song and back catalogue with nice little sort of anecdotes in between. Which
Oh, right.
one also included one with George Michael in, actually. She seemed to sort of be living near George at one stage. And I managed to do an interview with her
Yeah.
quite soon before she had that brain hemorrhage of some
Yeah, she
description.
had a hemorrhage, didn't she?
And she was full of, it was like 1 minute you're fine and next minute you're, oh
Yeah.
God, that's a horrendous story.
We're on that sort of thin line there, aren't we?
Yes, that is a bit too thin
It's
sometimes,
happened to
really.
quite a lot of people it's happened to a lot of people I know, and recently sort of
I
things
know,
are suddenly
it's quite grim, really, isn't it?
hitting, Yeah, I know.
It's like Lemmy used to say when people said, how come you're still alive? He said, you just have to dodge it when it's coming, just have to dodge death, I suppose that's it, really, isn't it?
I always
But
say,
then, so with the 80s, I mean, you mentioned earlier that, punk was very, very much there in
yeah,
your life, and then doing the act graphics. This is, so during the 80s, which was the period of sort of, I don't know, post-punk, but then we got into new romantic stuff, and then we get more into the indie pop stuff. And obviously this is the Thatcher decade as well. We just had the Falkland War and the miners' crisis. So what was your how did you navigate your 80s? Because it's quite an interesting decade.
yeah. It's funny. The 80s was, again, it was a bit all over the place. Yeah, I had these sort of little, bits of freelance work that I was doing then, and I started working design-wise with a company called Vivid. And we went back in 1989, we ended up doing the Stones again with Steel Wheels and all that stuff. And I met Underworld, who did a lot of their things. That was late 80s, early 80s. Right? It was like I had a group called the Flying Padovanis with the ex-Police guitarist Henry Padovani.
Oh,
And we had
yes.
so we had that, and we it was funny, we had quite a good base to us. We were working with someone called Clive Banks, who was he had a lot of publishing and promo and like big stuff, U2 promo and the Pretenders and Elvis Costello and all that sort of stuff. And from the Padovanis, we did quite a lot of, we were quite active.
So were you all with them on Demon Records when you brought out the first?
That's the sixth single on Demon. It was
Right.
the Padovani single. The first single on Demon was Subterraneans, which I was in as well with Nick Kent, the journalist.
Oh,
And
Nick, my God.
yeah,
Dear old
yeah,
Nick. Yes, he's now in Paris, isn't he?
yeah, he's in Paris. Yeah, we saw him at a friend of ours, Paul Rambali, his funeral a couple of years ago in Paris, and Nick was there. I hadn't seen him for donkey's years,
And were you
Nick,
terribly rock and roll? Because he's such a
yeah.
fantastic guy.
Oh yeah, we were terribly rock and roll, but I think I had this safety valve working with Nick had his issues, but he was a really good. Obviously, he was a great writer. But he was also a really good songwriter, and
Yes.
we had quite a good group. The Subterraneans were quite interesting. We went through a few different incarnations. We recorded one single and did one show supporting Elvis in the Edinburgh Playhouse. I remember Nick just got defeated by nerves.
Right.
And we couldn't. We did two sets of recordings, never got released. And then I moved on. Me and Henry did some work with Kim Wilde after that. and
Was that during her Kids in America period
it
or
was
after?
after that. Yeah, we did. It was the fourth single, thing called "View from a Bridge."
Right.
And we sort of did all the sort of promo stuff for that. And that was around the same time that Bucks Fizz were out there doing "Making Your Mind Up" and all that kind of stuff, where they're tearing their dresses off and that sort of thing. And we were doing that. So the 80s was a sort of hodgepodge of different bits and bobs. And then in probably it was 1986 actually. I was in Paris and I met Johnny Thunders, at my mate Mark Zamatis' house.
Right.
Johnny and I got on.
Was
and
he was he quite together at that stage? Hard
Difficult.
to say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, John was, was he together?
So did he
He'd
have
surprise you.
did he have his gang around him as well? Did he? Because it was
His gang was his band. He didn't really have he didn't really have a.
Was Stiff Baters about at that stage?
No, he wasn't part of our lot. No, he was, he was around. Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Because I did an interview with this person, Nina.
Nina, yeah, right, okay. Well, there's another story. Is that the recent incarnation of the book?
Yeah.
3 versions of that.
They are there. Oh, it is the latest, by the way.
It's the later one, yeah, that's right.
Revised and updated.
Yes.
Ink.
Yeah, the one before was updated, and then this is revised and updated, and the original one is actually quite hard to find.
Right.
But that is how I know Nina, is because of Johnny. So I worked with John up until he died. From then up until 91, and we toured and toured and toured different configurations, different lineups with the last band, the Oddballs, and
were they good concerts? Was it good shows? Did you?
Yeah, I think we only probably did a handful of stinkers, and they were, if Johnny got nervous about something. And the third show I ever did was one of them. It was at the Town and Country Club, now the Forum in Kentish Town. And John, we'd done 2 shows before that, I think Liverpool and Leeds or something like that. And we just could feel it was all going to go wobbly, and it did. And it was probably the biggest show he'd ever done, and it wasn't very good.
Yes, it must be quite strange when you have that sense that things aren't all going to line up, which is it must be. And did you go in the studio with him as well for?
Well, we did a little session, but one of the things, it didn't work out. It was rubbish, to be honest. What I felt, what we've got is like live recordings, and what I felt after all that stuff, and John I really liked, got to make that absolutely clear, is that he was great. He was a really good human. He had his problems, and I tend to avoid talking about those because everyone else does.
Yeah.
And I just, he was great. It was great to go shopping with. He was really animated. You always end up spending a fortune on stuff you never expected to go, because you got in that dynamic, And there's some of the shows we did was just fantastic. Some of the Oddball shows with the kind of review band with the sax. We had Alison Gordy singing. We had, it was a 6-piece, 5-piece, and was it 5 or 6? 5, and Johnny. And it was just so, I don't know, we carried each other, I mean, John could relax with us. Everyone was super straight. People ask us about, what about the drugs thing? And we just I always used to joke, so there's never enough to go around, so we don't bother.
Yes, God, that must have been it must be quite an interesting period to look back on, actually, on that sense.
Well, it certainly was. And, when Johnny died, I really found it very difficult to do anything else for 6 months, to be honest. Nothing else was that rock and roll, and, wasn't that so much fun. I mean, it was fun, you know. And it had its moments of being slightly redefining aggravation, but after a little while, you go, "Oh, that was fun," you know, and you forget about it, you know, and you just move.
Well, it's good
You
to
know.
forget. And did you play? Did you say you played live with the Padovanis much,
Mm.
or was
Yeah, we
that
did loads of stuff with the pads. Yeah, loads. I mean, that was, you know, we opened up for the Pretenders on, you know, tours, and we, you know, I can't remember the Jam and things like Stiff Little Fingers and stuff like.
right?
We did a lot of
God,
our own dates, and
did
we
you
tried.
find because you got the album out? They called them Crazy.
Oh
They
God, yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
that came out in '87. Did you find though? Because what I've
Well, they
realised,
call them crazy. Actually, came out. That was later. The first version of that we did was called Fond l'Enfer, which is like French translation for "Do the Hell," and um, and that was one of those I did the cover for. I remember I sort of nicked a kind of Ornette Coleman kind of concept for the cover for that, and um, yeah, but that was earlier in the 80s. Then they called them Crazy came out, which is it was a composite of that and a few other tracks that we
right?
and yeah, that I'd kind of forgotten about that one. No,
But
yeah, we'd sort of we'd
good,
done a sort of comeback thing in the 80s, and just, you know, I thought we were going to do that a bit longer, but we were just everyone got busy, and you know, Paul, the bass player's an artist now, and Henry's living in Corsica, and you know, I'm here, so
yes.
um,
Because
had an
also, what
impact.
I found that every 3 to 5 years is a kind of a new wave of young, enthusiastic musicians coming along, and it almost seems like the people, even if they've only been going for 5 years, it almost feels like they they're kind of not old hat, but there's like a new wave coming on. And '87 was quite interesting because for me, I was a massive Smiths fan, and there was like from '83 to '87, the Smiths were there. They
Yeah.
dominated quite a lot of that indie scene, but then they broke up, and then Ecstasy came along, and you could see this kind of a next wave of people coming up, and it was quite a different scene. There has the Manchester scene with people like the Stone Roses and Primal Scream,
Mm.
and people, and then you had 4AD records that had Throne Muses and
Yeah.
Pixies, and then you had the Seattle grunge scene. So suddenly, music was kind of altering all again, and that was yes. A lot of bands that from that period, when I've interviewed them, said, "Well, to be honest, we're on our third or fourth album, and to be honest, no one was particularly interested. Even our own fans weren't
It,
particularly interested."
it's really interesting that, isn't it? Because, you know, we had the group, like, you know, stuff that I was doing, and with the Padovanis or guitar bands, you know, really, well, guitar, bass, and drums. And we occasionally had keyboards and synthesizer. We had, you know, one of the guys from Henry was in the Wayne County in the electric chairs, so we had
Wow.
he did two albums with which are both really great psychedelic records, actually, really good.
Yeah.
We had the bass player Val Haller. He played kind of synth with us with the pads, and we had Lowell Coxill as well, the jazz.
My God, he used to come to the East Anglian fairs and festivals in the '70s
Yes, he would have done.
with
Yeah.
Hank Wangford.
Oh yeah, Hank. Yeah, right. Crikey.
Yes, quite.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there's some great pictures of him sort of at some kind of East Anglian fair, Albion fair, sort of blowing his sax.
Oh, he was great. Lowell was like everyone's favourite uncle, you know. And I first saw him busking outside a soft machine gig in the festival hall, and it was like obviously their mate, you know. But he was in a doorway, and it was like, and then we got in with the pads, and he came on that single, the Demon single. He's playing on that, and it was great. I remember when was Charles and Diana's wedding. Uh, I forget what year that was. Someone will know.
I can't even remember the decade. Is that the '80s?
Yeah. It was the 80s,
I'm sorry, I
and,
haven't.
and it was he. I was walking with him around the back of Kensington High Street, and we were walking down this little alley, and there was this kids' party going on, and this woman come out of the back alley bit and said, "Oh, are you a musician?" to Lowell, and he goes, "Well, I play the saxophone," and they said, "Can you our beatbox, or whatever they called it, our cassette machine is broken down, and we're doing Pass the Parcel. Can you come and do it for us? And I said, yeah, all right. So there was Lowell with his little sopranino sax doing Nelly the Elephant for Pass the Parcel, and it was crazy because he'd just stop, it was really avant-garde actually, and he'd be going and stop.
Yes.
And then and carry on. And it was just a moment. It was one of those, this is genius. This is fantastic. Someone should record this. This is great.
I know.
And yeah.
Incredible. Yes, what a lovely story that was.
But we had like the 80s. I was at that time I was doing sort of like guitar bands, ended up working with Johnny. It's guitar, and at that time music was veering towards other things, a lot of keys and synths and things like that, not guitar bands, And so I probably thought, oh, mate, actually I didn't even think about it at the time. It was just loved doing what I was doing, but probably not in vogue.
No, it's always tricky to get in vogue or just be in vogue. But then you worked for Dream Command, and that was the Comsat Angel. So this was the art
Dream
project.
Command, yeah, that was the cover that we did. I forgot about that.
Fire on the Moon.
Dream Command, yeah, that's it. Woof, I forgot. That was a sleeve we did at Vivid.
Yeah, because it was quite interesting because they were such a hot band in the indie world in the 80s. So why did they call themselves the Dream Command at that stage?
No, it was something to do with that thing about the Comsat. I'm sure of it. It was like I don't know, but they were being under investigational threats from the CIA, talking about sat communications and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
How
Dream
strange.
Command, yeah.
Yeah. So
I've
that was.
actually got a rough of the cover somewhere, probably in my folio up in the loft.
And did they come up with the idea of the sort of four faces and the?
The actual design concept, I think, on that, because I put the artwork together, the design concept came from John Warwicker, who ended up starting a company called Tomato after Vivid. We went bust.
Did you have offices in LA as well?
No, just had an office in Camden Town.
Right.
Yeah, our studio was in Camden, along with the video side, which was quite big, and that's what ended up. There was so much money attached to videos at that time, and I think the whole thing just plummeted. It just wasn't panning out. And even though we'd just done a Rolling Stones album and all their merchandise and everything for the Steel Wheels tour,
yes,
we just didn't survive it.
Yes. So what happened to John Whittaker, did you say?
John Warwicker.
Warwicker.
Yeah, he moved to Australia. I can't remember if it's Brisbane or Melbourne. I can't remember. But
yes.
I see him every now on social media.
Yes.
But yeah, he was, he did a lot of tuition and things like that, and he got pretty successful. And Tomato, successful design group. They did the first incarnation. After Johnny died, I did a tribute album for Johnny, which has just come out. I don't know if you know this. It's just come out. It came out a couple of months ago again. And this is the third incarnation of this record, but we've added more people to it.
Right.
So
I think I saw it on your page, actually.
You probably did. Yeah, I have been publicising it a bit.
Well, it's got to be done, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then how did you navigate your 90s then? Because again, these are the John Major years, which is again quite a different vibe. And like I said, a lot of bands fold and a lot of new ones begin and different scenes. So what was your 90s after Vivid?
Well, I ended up doing various bits and pieces, I suppose. I ended up doing some work. I met with Steve Naive from Elvis Costello's band, and we did some work together. I actually saw him a couple of weeks ago. I hadn't seen him for ages. He lives in Paris.
Yes, I did an interview with him in his little pad because he's got some live dates, I think, this month, actually.
He's just done some here. him and his wife's son had just been doing some duo stuff, and
That's right. And he was, and it was very sweet. I think he had 3 or 4 dates. One being his mother's care home that he was going to be
yeah,
playing.
that's right. That was the night after I saw him. He was he was doing the West Hampstead Arts Club.
That's the one. Yes.
Tiny little place. And it's great, you know. So he was doing that, and that's it. The next night, he was going off to do his mum's care home, and I just thought that's the real rock and roll, isn't it? You know,
It was the nicest story I've ever heard.
yeah, it was really lovely. It was really great. And then he was going back to Paris. So
and then working with Elvis for the tour.
And he was he was doing a lot of Elvis songs. He was singing as well, and I'd never known him do that. But you know, we did stuff, and we did some improvised music to silent movies. So we had a couple of silent movies.
That's right. I remember him
take them out and semi-improvised. You know, we had themes that we had to work around, and we just rehearsed to films. You know, and quite a big. Sarah J. Morris was with us doing some vocaling.
Oh my God, she's amazing! Yes.
Yeah. It was really good.
I remember. I think her husband worked at the Norwich Puppet Theatre, and who's got the father of the son,
David.
Yes.
Yes, he was. Yeah, David. He was an interesting cat. He played everything. He could play, like, you know, ukulele, violin, didgeridoo, all sorts of interesting things. Yeah.
What was his surname? Is it
Coulter?
What was it?
Coulter.
Oh, could have been. Yes, that's right. I was in touch with him recently, but yes. Yeah. And then did you work with another one of those people who was very big on the alternative hippie festival scene, Rory McLeod? Was he?
Oh yeah, Rory's a dear friend of mine. Rory is very special. I played on an album he did called Swings and Roundabouts. That was just fantastic tracks on it. You know, it's a lot of that is about breakup of relationship. It's hard work if you lyrically, it's hard.
Yes,
it's beautiful, uplifting record. You know, and I've done I don't know, I must have done about 7 record covers for Rory. I've done pretty much everything since.
Because you did Lullabies for Big Babies.
Yeah, that was the first one I did
on Cooking Vinyl Records.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right. That was the first.
Because I think we saw him quite a bit when he was the Glastonbury Greenfields. He would often be
of
appearing.
Course, absolutely.
And he was just amazing. Always singing about the markets, wasn't he? And
yeah, he'd sing about anything that bothered him. You know, political issues, and you know, he's so well educated in his. You know, he knows what he's you know, he's just informed, and you know, and he's quite controversial with some of his lyrics. And I mean, I just recorded an album. He's got this new album called Toe Lines, and I recorded a track. Basically, it's called Older Than Elvis, and it's 13 minutes long. And I recorded it remotely with our bass player with Matlock, a guy called Jim Lowe. He produces the Stereophonics, and he's got his own studio. So I done a bit of recording down at his studio, and again, a garden shed studio. It's a bit bigger than that, and we recorded this track "Older Than Elvis" for Rory, and it's just a piece of genius. It's about an Elvis Presley impersonator who realizes that he's actually older than Elvis was when he died, and the lyric to it is choice. You know, so it's 13 minutes long, so it's a lot of lyric.
Yes, God. Well, I guess, I mean, I think Elvis was only 42 when he died.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
So
one time I said I was going to, because Rory lives up near the borders, you know, Scottish borders, and I was going to go and see him, and he said, "Oh, I'll send you something to tell you how to get to me." So what he did, he recorded a song and sent it to me on cassette, which is the instructions of how to get from my house to his house. Excellent. And it's all in the form of the song.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's on a little cassette, you know, it's really individual.
That's such a precious
one-off, isn't it? That, because it would be irrelevant to anybody else. You know?
God, well, no, it was always, you know, one of the highlights of the festival scene.
Yeah, he's captivating.
He's really
He's such a
just
great player, great harmonica player. On this, I've just done this new album with me and Neil X.
yes.
I met Neil when I met him Zig Zig Sputnik times, and me and Neil have just done this record with that author, with Nina Antonia.
Oh,
Yeah, so we just made a record. She sent us some poems, and we said, Neil and I looked at each other and went, I think we can set music to these, which is what we've done. And we spent 3 years
yes.
on it.
Oh, because Neil was playing, I think it was almost New Year's Eve in North Norfolk with a singer who's American singer who had a big hit in the 80s.
Elizabeth,
Yes, God, that's good.
Westwood,
Someone's paid
Elizabeth
attention.
Westwood. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. She had Westworld, didn't she?
that's the band.
Yeah, that's it.
God, that's you. You must have such a community of musicians and
Yeah,
artists, which is
it's very cozy. We're all getting on a bit, aren't we? But I tell you, it's great. When Neil and I started doing this record, and you know, Nina had no idea that she just written these poems, suddenly she was having to, we recorded this music and we got other people drafted in, and people like James Hallowell from the Waterboys, got involved playing piano, and as he's been playing, we met him when working with Glen Matlock, and he was part of us lot then, and we called in like a theremin player from LA who's Mark Almond's sort of contact. Then Neil works with Mark. So we put all these people together, harpists, cellists, and then we talked to Mike Scott, Waterboys.
yes.
And Mike says, I love this record, but I don't think you got the vocal sound right. Can I mix it? So we went, yeah, right, go on. And that's what he did, and he's mixed it, and he's turned it from something that we were like worried about into something of, I think, a thing of beauty now, And it's a difficult little beast because it is effectively a poetry record with music, but there ain't many of them knocking around, and
No, but
certainly with the kind, we've got programming in it, and we've got a lot of real stuff in it, so it's a balance of organic and programmed, and we're taking it out doing some shows at the moment.
so is this what's called Nina and the Lunar Moths?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Right, so you're on the road. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting because you mentioned about the poetry. David J, he was in the in Bauhaus. He's just done an album recently with kind of spoken word.
has he now? Oh, okay.
Yes, sort of
That's
gone
interesting.
through his archives and sort of
Yes.
decided to put it to an album, and it is absolutely, some of it is amazing. So yeah,
It
so
works. It does work. I mean, we did a little show in Brighton last week. We're testing the water, seeing whether it's going to work. Because Nina's not used to it. Taking a thing, she's not a vocalist. And taking that and working it in with what we've been doing, certainly with the program stuff, which is quite, you know, it's quite defined. You can't. There's no free form in that. So that's quite a challenge for her actually. But it seemed to work the other night. People.
so it was interesting you mentioned the Waterboys because we mentioned Terry Reid earlier, because when he did a bit of a
Yeah.
comeback in the 80s or early 90s, he did a version of Whole of the Moon, which was fantastic, but it was, I think, released at the same time that the Waterboys re-released their single of the actual track. So it was like Terry was always about to come back. No, no.
Yeah, yeah, that wasn't a great plan. I know. Yeah, Mike, as the Waterboys had just done a track for the new incarnation of the Johnny Thunders tribute album.
Oh, right.
He's a huge Johnny fan, and he's actually rewrote. Well, he wrote some lyrics because what he picked as a song wasn't really a song; it was more of a thing that was on a like, what do you call it, an outtakes record. And he went, "Oh, I want to have a go at that." And he said to me, if someone had ever said to me as a young 19-year-old Mike Scott that I'd be sharing a lyric with Johnny Thunders, I wouldn't have believed him.
No, Well, that would have been a hard one to go.
Yeah, it
So,
would have been. Yeah,
so on the album, Dropping Like
yeah.
Butterflies,
Oh,
did you say that was a project that had started 3 years ago?
mm.
And
Yeah.
was it Nina that, did you say, approached you on that?
No,
Or?
no. Nina just sent me a book of poems, and I got her to send one to Neil. And I'd been doing some stuff with Neil's got this band called the Monte Cristos,
Yes.
and we've been pottering around doing bits of recording, and we've accumulated some tracks, and so we were quite familiar. And I played drums on the they do Personality Crisis on the Johnny Thunders tribute, and I actually put some real drums down on that, and with Mark Armour's track. And I don't think they've ever Sputniks had never recorded a track with real drums on it, so that was a first. But anyway, got on well with Neil, and he's turned into one of my best buddies, and um, literally we got together and we said to Nina, "No, we'd really like to put music to these poems. What do you reckon?" And she went, "Sure, why not? So what got to lose? Nothing." And that's what we did, and I think I think obviously it's taken a while. It's taken a lot of thought and consideration,
Yes.
for effectively an art project, really. I mean, I don't know. It's a hard sell.
It would be. But the album's coming out on Anna McGee's and
Yeah,
Youth's label.
it's on Creation Youth. Yeah,
Yeah. So that must have, so did they hear the album and say, we want to release it?
Youth
Or?
did. Youth did, and he liked it. And I know their kind of what do you say is the label manager active is a guy called Richard England who runs a distribution and label called Cadiz. And I know Richard, I've known him for 20 years or something like that, and I, I never really approached him about it because I didn't really want to kind of, I don't know, I didn't think he'd probably want to put it out.
But it's also a bit hard putting them in a situation where you think, oh, he might have to say no, but
Yeah, well, exactly. That's more it,
and
actually.
then you think awkward.
I didn't want to put him in a corner because we,
Yes.
and that side of thing. And then Youth turned around and said, "I would like to put this record out," and that kind of cured that problem.
Fantastic.
So we just done that and just literally got our. Neil and I went up to press the vinyl last week. We did the first, not the first 10, that was done by a technician, but the next 40, which are all special product. They're all we pressed them, which was great. To do.
Fantastic. And
Yeah.
you got Phil Polecat.
Oh yeah, Phil Bloomberg's on it. Yeah, that's right. He's playing bass. So me, Phil, and Neil did all the backing tracks together. We did actually 13. One of them we decided not to use, and actually Neil was going to use it on his own album. Because he did the vocal on that one. It just didn't fit with the other 12.
Yes.
Yeah, Phil's on it. Yeah, that's
God,
right.
that is brilliant. And you've got Hebden Bridge, then Hampstead, and then Bristol. This is
Yeah.
very good. This is positively you're on tour here, aren't you? Which is
Sort of, yeah. Well, I say it's a testing the water, but only little places just to see, see whether it works. If it works, then great. But after the first showing, we thought, yeah, this could work.
yes, well, it's got to be done. Just then, because so the end of the 90s,
Oh yeah.
and then going into 2000. What were you up to at that point?
Well, I think during all this period of various things, I'd been working with Glen, and we started working together making records in about 1996, and I made 4 albums with Glen.
Yes.
Up until Consequences Coming, which was the last album. So, Glenn was taking up a fair bit of time because we were touring a fair bit. We've been through a few, lineups and things like that. But we stayed with the last lineup for quite a while with Neil, Jim Lowe playing bass, and Glenn fronting it. We've had Chris Spedding play guitar with us. You know, we've had Earl Slick. Earl Slick was with us for a couple of years.
Good old Slicky. And also Chris motorbiking. Who could forget that?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And in that period of time, probably since the early 90s, I got friendly with the Japanese concert promoters who put us on with Johnny. And I've been out to Japan a bit with various other bits and pieces, a French singer called Anne Pigalle, and then Johnny. And then I got friendly with the promoter, and we became really good friends. When Johnny died, he asked me if I wanted to help working with him. And they're called Smash Corporation in Japan, and they run the Fuji Rock Festival, which has been going since '97. And I was working on that for, up until a couple of years ago, till COVID, really. And then COVID changed the whole face of things. I went out there last year, but I had worked on pretty much 25 years of it. Looking at acts, going out there playing. That's been quite a saviour actually throughout everything, and it's also deeply involved in music, and doing sessions out there for Japanese singers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with all your Discogs, all these albums, are they ones you've mostly, is this a combination of what you've designed and what you've played on, by the way?
Don't know, I've never looked.
Haven't you? Jesus,
No.
it's like 200.
Well, record covers that I've actually designed, because I do a lot of stuff. I mean, you actually think, the sleeves I've designed certainly over the last years have been, all the stuff as Jimmy Vaughan, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and all those kind of things, and reissues, and Dan Penn, Spooner Oldham, and vintage, American songwriters like that. And I tend to, Andy Fairweather Lowe, people like that, and there's a lot of that. So I don't know. I must have done probably between 1,500 and 2,000 record covers.
My God, that is amazing, because I was saying,
I've got no idea what's up there.
No, the Sharks, Ready, Set.
Yeah, that's right. There was 2 Sharks albums of, did a band called King Mob, who was Snips from the Sharks and Spedding.
Yes.
I mean, I tend to forget all these. I don't know.
Oh my God, you did Stan Ridgway, Walking Home Alone.
Oh yeah, Walking Home Alone. I did the single for that. It was lovely. I found out the other day because he sent me his original lyrics he wrote, and I've got those as a little bit of notepaper, which I think I used on the back of that of Walking Home Alone. I like Stan Ridgway. Those songs are fantastic.
God, I mean, yes. And the Wall of Voodoo.
Wall of Voodoo. Yeah,
incredible band. So with like a project like that, there's a picture and the design. So did you come up with all that and say this?
Yeah. He had a picture. He just sent me that, and then I said, "Have you got the lyrics?" So he wrote them and sent me that, because he was in the States, and I was doing stuff for IRS Records. I think there was a 3D album I did for the Cramps at that time as well for IRS.
Was that by Miles at that stage?
It was by Steve Tannett, who used to work at IRS at the time.
Right.
Henry Padovani also worked as IRS for their international at that time. So it was like, little shop, wasn't it? We're all, and I think a few other, I can't remember. There were a few jobs I did for IRS. I can't remember a lot of these things,
Because it's interesting, because you mentioned Kevin Ayres earlier, and you'd worked on that project with his daughter and Paul Simeon, didn't
Glen,
you?
Yeah, that's right. Me and Gordon did all that. My colleague who I do all the Clash stuff with, and see a lot of the Clash designs done since 2012, the sound system and the various collections and the Joe Strummer 001 and, and Galen and Paul. Yeah.
So at the moment, you've got quite a few music projects. Do you have any other artwork bits and pieces?
At the moment, I'm doing a project for basically a songwriter called Bobby Charles. And Bobby Charles is not famous for writing "See You Later, Alligator."
Right. Well, that's pretty famous.
Yeah, it's an 8 CD box set. Um, and that's on the cars now. And funnily enough, I've been asked to do back in 2012. I did Terry Reid live in London at Ronnie Scott's,
Right.
reissuing it on the new Johnny Depp label, and I've just been asked to do that cover for that. It's it's reissuing what was out then, but with a completely different package. I haven't even gone into discussions as to what, because the trouble is with a lot of things like that, certainly if with an artist who doesn't exist anymore, you know, he hasn't got a call in it. That's the thing, and I've done that before, working with people who are dead, and it's difficult because you've got this kind of design by committee. You've got label, you've got PR people, you've got management, but you haven't got the artist.
Yes.
That makes it quite difficult. You know,
Yeah.
um, as I say, everyone's got their own view. Someone will turn around at the end of the day and you've done the design, which is looking good, and someone will go, "I don't like orange,"
That's
and then
how.
you kind of go, "I tell you what, I'm at the stage of career where I think if I don't particularly agree with something, I just won't do it." I I, I remember talking to years ago. I did a couple of covers for that band Osibisa,
Oh, yes.
yeah, with Roger Dean, because I went back to him and said, "You did the original Flying Elephant. Can you do this?" And he did it at a completely different budget to you can probably imagine how it used to be. And
Yes.
he just did it because he wanted to. And I was talking about Osibisa and Teddy Osei, who's now gone, and I was saying, "Oh, I got asked about doing this," and I was saying, "That's going to be complicated, aren't they, in Ghana?" And they said, "No, they're just up the road from you in Kingsbury near Wembley." I'm joking. And I went round there, and they were like all of them sitting in this semi-detached house and just up the road from me. And it was the easiest little, brief I could possibly, just let me do it, and got hold of Roger and there's interesting conversations with him actually.
God, that's
But,
amazing. That
yeah.
is so strange. Yes, that's amazing. Because a few months ago, because a lot of people are writing their memoirs at the moment. There's a woman called Genevieve who's
Mm,
just in LA, and she went on to marry a guy called John Kosh,
right.
Kosh, who was a kind of art director for Apple, and then was in
Yeah.
LA doing covers, a bit like what you've been doing.
Mm,
So, yes, do you sort of look at other people's work quite a bit and
yeah.
study what people are up
Yeah.
to and where
I
they're
mean, I
coming?
I tend to, I like going into record shops and just browsing. Probably not buying. I mean, I don't need any more.
Yes.
But I do like looking at sleeves. But I more get influence and interest in looking at book covers. And I realise, going to foils and these bookshops, so there's so loads of fantastic covers, and you realise that the budgets for these things have disappeared. People are doing this stuff for next to nothing. And record covers. Really, I mean, unless you're, the big acts have probably got the worst covers. You know,
Yes.
some of the small indie stuff have got the more interesting stuff because they got art students working with them, friends, and they spend time on them. A lot of the big acts. You look at the last kind of things from the Stones, for example. I've got to say they're just appalling.
Well, it was interesting because when I've been I loved some of those exhibitions. Like there was a David Bowie one at the
Yeah.
VMA, David Bowie years. And I just thought, God, when you put all his album covers together, you thought, it was kind of intriguing because he had obviously put a lot of work into it. And he was also someone who was obsessed about being photographed and having photography and his image. And
Mm.
then when I've seen some of the other kind of bands with their album covers, I just think, God, they just didn't seem to bother. So it was such, yeah, they just weren't that great, were they?
Well, no, 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 that's very true.
But some are great. It was funny actually today. I don't know why, but I was looking a bit like you were saying, looking at people's album covers, and there was I don't know why, but I was looking at some of those 70s rock ones. Like there was a band called the Scorpions from Germany, and there was that famous picture of the bloke with the chewing gum over the woman's breast, and and I just looked at it and I thought, God, who designed it? And that was Hypnosis.
Hypnosis. Yeah, it was Hypnosis, wasn't it?
And the guy said, "Well, you couldn't get away with that now." And I thought, you shouldn't have got away with it then. It was just...
You wouldn't even talk about doing something like that now, would you?
Well, it was so tacky, even for the 70s. I was just thinking, God knows what they rejected on that one.
I mean, Hypnosis is quite interesting. There was a good documentary on Hypnosis, and the only one left now is Aubrey Powell. And, just the concept of their design concept, the way that they structured a design concept, and then, they go a certain way, and then if it got rejected, then they'll end up pitching that to someone else a few months later or something like that. Of course you do. It's kind of, you've got a good idea, you try and flog it. And, but it's interesting. I mean, yeah, Hypnosis, you look at some of those covers there, you look at... when there was an album called Elegy by the Nice, and they had to go somewhere like the Sahara and put all these balls inflated over a sand dune. And you kind of look at that now and you go, oh, that's like, you do that on a computer, couldn't you? Not them. They did it. And they realised that each one of the balls, I don't know how many, they had like 60 or something, in total. And each one of the balls took 20 minutes to inflate. And they only had one inflator, and it was like... that's a time-consuming thing, and you're talking about doing this in the Sahara Desert. Nothing easy about that job, was there?
Yeah, they must have, got that one signed off by someone who must have been rather carefree with the cash. So
whatever cash there was available. I have no idea how much these things cost,
But yeah, that was quite the budget.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yes. So this month you've got some live dates, and then what have you've got a few other projects. Do you have any other kind of musical kind of adventures coming up?
I think what we're going to try and do really is to sort of see out where we're going in the next few months with the Lunar Moths project. I don't really want to get too distracted on anything else, or because otherwise, we could end up just wasting it, which I really don't want to do. And after that, we're not doing anything now with Matlock, and because he's gone off to be a Sex Pistol now for the rest of the year.
Yes.
And we won't do anything probably solo-wise. He's still writing stuff, but we'll get back when he's got time and just run some of these things up. We talked about it before he went, about going to do some of his stuff, and but we just didn't find the time, so that might appear. But I'm working with a guy called John Fiddler. He had a band called Medicine Head.
Medicine. God, that's really familiar, actually.
Now, Medicine Head, I went to see him when I was 16 in 1971 at my local Carshalton College or somewhere like that. And I got friendly with John recently. I've just done a new bit of recording with him.
Oh, I've done an interview with him. I know.
Yeah. Have you?
Yes, he was a really amazing guy. He had an amazing story.
Oh, he's got loads of good stories. Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he has got a lot of good stories, and quite some boggling ones as well. But I won't be able to remember it. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah. God, sorry, I've gone blank actually, but I'm trying to remember the story he told me. He did have a lot, actually, because he goes way back, doesn't he, into that whole... Yeah. I think, actually, there's a really famous picture. No, I'm thinking of Edgar Broughton, sorry.
Oh, well, there you go. There's another.
There was the David Bowie when he finished the Ziggy Stardust, and there's all the pictures of Bowie and backstage with Lulu and various other people. And then there's this guy in the corner. And I kept, who's that? It's Edgar Broughton. He was there as well. But that was when Bowie says, "That's it, I'm never playing again."
Oh, yeah.
So sorry, what were you doing with John?
I'm recording a track which I think should be a single. It's really beautiful. It's very low key, and he just asked me to go and, John's got his own studio, so he tends to do everything himself. But the one thing that I said to him, no, you need some proper drums on this, not a whole kit, but you just need that touch on it just to make it. And he said, yeah, come on, come do it. So I did, and it's funny, I haven't known him that long, but I did a gig with him recently. Had like 16 songs to learn in one rehearsal or something like that. I was like, oh. But some of them I knew from my childhood. And then we did this bit of recording. So I think we've actually turned into like good mates.
Yes.
And it all makes a change for me to actually work in a group with someone older than me. Usually, that's a first. But so I hope that will continue. He's always writing. So
I have to say, you've developed an amazing network and community, haven't you? Have you had that all your life? Have you always felt that ability to create such a harmonious vibe?
I think so. I think that's what's important to me, really. I think I just... you do tumble into these things, and then suddenly you realise you've done something and you met someone, you're going, oh, let's work something out of this. I was just thinking, we were talking about Bowie, and I had a group back in, sometime in the 80s called Mystery Slang. And Mystery Slang did a couple of albums on Virgin. And we, at one stage, had Gail Ann Dorsey as our bass player.
Nice.
Yeah, she was a goddess. She was fantastic. And I remember one day, she went and said, "Oh, I'm just got to do some demos. I'll bring them in. You can have a listen." So we were in rehearsal a lot at the time then, and she brought them in one day, and I went, "Wow, she's not going to be with us for long, is she?" They were fantastic, really great, singing. Everything was great, and a bass player, she's goddess, fantastic. And I do remember she introduced me to David once, and we were I was in Roskilde Festival in Denmark, and I was staying in the same hotel, and she came in the foyer with David, and she said, "Oh, Chris, I've got to introduce you." And I said, "Okay," so I went up and said hello to David, who was lovely, and I then accused him of stealing my bass player. which he took really lovely. Actually, we had a lovely, good laugh about that. Really,
yes. Well, that's fantastic. On that, I was going to say, with you working with John, did you play that song that he did, a demo of His Guiding Hand? Was that one of the ones that you had to learn?
We did. No, I didn't have to learn that, but I know it.
Yes, because apparently that was one of John Peel's kind of most treasured records that he had in his box that he would take in the case of a fire.
Actually, you just made me think about that, because I've got... Yeah, there we go. The first Medicine Head album, New Bottles, Old Medicine.
Right.
The first album on the Dandelion label.
Oh, of course.
And His Guiding Hand is the second to the end track on that. I'm just going to play that when we go.
Yes.
I mean, When Night Falls, the first track is great, because His Guiding Hand was a single as well. And we had Pictures in the Sky, which was also fantastic track. There's loads. John's actually a really great songwriter,
Yes, absolutely.
And I did surprise him, because That's also because I used to have the record shop. I do have probably about 6 of his albums, and try not to be sycophantic at the same time and say, "No, John, I've got your records. It's all right. I can learn the songs."
God, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Such a nice thing. Well, look, Chris, well, thank you ever so much for your time, and I'll look out for your new album, or your new work with Neil and Nina, and
Yeah, and I
I'll,
think it's out and about now. So we got the records, the vinyl, the CDs are coming along. We're going to have a launch party in June. That's something we're going to work. We're going to have in Denmark Street, actually.
perfect.
What date is it? It's 18th of June, I think.
Nearly
I'll
the
put it
summer
up on
solstice. Yes.
yeah, exactly. I'll put it all up on social. And
Yeah.
so you'll stay on the page. But if if you fancy coming, it's I know it's a bit of a hike for you, but
Could be a nice night.
well, it will be. It's at a good place in Denmark Street. It's a good venue, and I think we're gonna. I don't know quite how we're going to play it yet. We want to make it like a bit like a happening, that sort of thing.
It's got to be done. It's got
Yeah.
to be done. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, I'm so pleased. Well, thank you again for your time. This has been quite a lot to think about, actually. But
I know.
yes. But
Yeah.
lots to go and research on that. Okay. Well, look, have a great sort of summer, and yes, hope it all goes well into the future. Okay. Thanks, there, Chris.
That's my pleasure. Yeah.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
For now. Bye. Bye.
And that was me in conversation with Chris, talking about his life in music, the creative industry, art, design, and much more. I will put a link to his social media page in the notes below. This has been the C86 Show. David Eastaugh. If you want to contact me, you can on any of the social media platform sites. Just do C86 Show. All these interviews have been archived on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. It's true. Have a great week. Stay safe.